And good evening, and welcome to Revolutionary Health. Revolutionary Health is a program of the Counter Narrative Project, and the mission of the Counter Narrative Project is to build power among Black gay men and to work in solidarity and coalition with all movements committed to social and racial justice. You can find us online at thecounternarrative.org, and while you're there, please go ahead and join our mailing list. On social media, you can find us on Twitter at Building Desire, on Instagram at the Counter Narrative, and on Facebook at the Counter Narrative Project. While you are here watching us on YouTube, make sure that you hit the subscribe button and make sure that you hit the little like button for this video. This won't be the last time I say that, so I'll make sure that I mention that again. But hit subscribe and hit like since you're here. If you have questions throughout this entire night, feel free to go ahead and hit us up in the chat box right there. You can ask us any questions that you have, and we will do our best to make sure that we get to our questions, because we got a lot to cover tonight. A lot. So, I am here with some amazing folks, and I'm going to start down on the other end with this brother over here to my far left.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Michael. My name is David Malbranch. I'm a physician, and recently, Trevante Rhodes liked a comment that I put on his Instagram page. So, we're officially dating now. And I just want to claim that to the universe right now. Hopefully from my words to someone's ears. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Michael Ward, not Trevante Rhodes. I'm an actor, model, and an activist.
You can't be done.
He is.
Okay. My name is Kipper Jones. I'm a singer, songwriter, social troublemaker, and David Malbranch's friend. I'm married, so I have nothing to do with this Trevante.
I am so grateful to have all of you here. So like I mentioned just a second ago, everybody, we have a lot to cover. So keep in mind, the chat box is there for you. Please go ahead and send us any questions or comments that you have. Jay Moore, by the way, David said, yes, Trevante. So, hey, Jay, thank you so much for joining us.
Stay away from my man. Stay away from my man.
And make sure you hit subscribe and hit like. So I want to start on a heavy note, actually. So this past Sunday, Armias Ascadon, publicly known as Nipsey Hussel, was tragically murdered in Los Angeles. And there was just an outpouring, right, of support, of conversation during that time. But it was interesting, right? So all of this happened, and then there was the conversation around Nipsey Hussel and homophobia that began to surface pretty quickly on Monday. And I want to start here and have this conversation and just get your thoughts. So I'm going to really just plant that and get thoughts from each of you about the discussions that began to take place. And I'm just curious to know what all of you thought. So I'll start here.
It was interesting to me because I'm from Los Angeles. I grew up in LA. I grew up steeped in the gang culture. It's not foreign to me at all. So when I heard it, the first thing that came to my mind was, just damn it. Mm-hmm. When are we going to get enough? When is enough going to be enough? And then I heard the rumblings of his past homophobic remarks and all of that kind of thing, when I'm going, okay, great, but he's dead.
Right.
And he's got kids, and he has a wife, and he's got brothers and sisters and friends, and he's like a real person. His name is Armias. He's not Nipsey Hussel when he's being mourned by people who know him. Mm-hmm. And so that kind of bothered me, but as a Black same-gender loving individual, I can understand the sensitivity. I mean, I get it. It is a complicated situation. But when we look at the careers of like Jay-Z, the careers of Common, the careers of many hip-hop stars, they may begin in this homophobic space because, evidently that's kind of what that genre kind of speaks to. But people have the opportunity in their lives to evolve, to see things in a different way. And when your life is snuffed out, that opportunity no longer exists.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of unfair to then assassinate the guy's character after he's gone. And it doesn't have the opportunity to do that. And that's just kind of how I see that homophobic piece, if you want to call it that, you know. And to me, I don't know if it was really all that homophobic. He just saw things differently in terms of, I think he said something about not seeing black gay men as strong men. Okay, so that deserves a conversation. But when you can't have that conversation anymore, what do you do? You know, so that's how I see that.
And I think, like Johnny was saying prior to us coming on here, is when you don't have the gift of time, you can't change, you can't evolve. And to me, I think about reggae and dancehall, which is very homophobic in a lot of terms as well. And I think it was Bougie Bonton that came out recently. So look what can happen over time if you have that opportunity and that chance to change. And as well, being a black gay man, I feel like there is a sensitivity to it, but there's still the humanity piece in recognizing in all of us that we're complex and complicated human beings, and we're flawed, beautiful creatures. So there's a lot of things that we do on a daily basis that may resurface when we pass. But the beautiful thing about, you know, humanity and the gift of time, like Johnny said, is that you can change, you can learn, you can grow. And we don't have that opportunity with the leader in the community that could have evolved and changed his mind and then spread, you know, that to the rest of the community. So it's still a sad part about it.
Yeah, and I didn't even know who he was. So when I heard about it, I heard everyone kind of, you know, mourning and posting on social media, and it turned very quickly from this like tragic thing to all of a sudden everyone starting to tear him down or find faults with him. And you know, Kipper was saying this earlier before we came on air, is that, you know, this culture of social media right now is all about like tearing somebody down. And I for some reason thought back to the movie in the 1980s called Heathers, where about the high schoolers and the girls and the popular girls, they found out when they started killing them, these people became saints. And so they were real jerks in real life, and they were assholes and they were mean to everybody, but when they died, like everybody lauded them. And that was back then, over 30 years ago. Now it seems the exact reverse. So someone can be like a good person, and most people know he's about some good stuff or she's about some good stuff, and then when they die, it's about nitpicking about what may be wrong with them and not realizing, like what Michael said, is that we're all beautiful, flawed creatures, so no one is perfect. But when you even look at the political landscape, I saw people like all these candidates are coming up for the Democratic Party, and we haven't learned our lesson from 2016, where every candidate, they could be amazing, and we're going to find that one thing that they did. Oh, they didn't do this, or I found in 1986 they said this, and not leaving them room to kind of grow and evolve and go over time. And the unfortunate reality with Nipsey Hussle is that, you know, he's deceased right now. So I think the main thing is just to kind of mourn him and the good person he was, because most of the stuff that I read about him, you know, I thought was good stuff. The comment that he made about homosexuals not being strong black men, a lot of people feel that way. So it didn't really bother me. I was like, fuck that, I don't care. I know a lot of people think that way, but a lot of us disprove that there or redefine masculinity or what it means to be a man every single day.
Sure.
And someone can be black, same gender loving, and be a strong black man at the same time. Like, just a stupid thought. So maybe if given time, he would have evolved from that, like Common or like Jay-Z or someone like that.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. I want to bring in some comments, and then I have some thoughts as well. So first of all, hey, John Jordan, hi, thank you so much for joining us. Randy Sill, hey, Randy. Randy said, much love to you fellas. Thank you so much for joining, Randy. Jay Moore has a comment. I think the gays are just tired of not being valued and respected the same way from our hetero brothers. We don't get the same support from them.
Right.
Sad, nevertheless.
Right.
Thank you so much for that comment, Jay. And Jay Bernard is visiting us. Hey, Jay. And he's going to be talking about Jussie. So he just wanted to let us know. Thank you
We
so
are not
much.
talking
We're
about
not talking about
Jussie.
Just that can be endorsed. Thank you very much.
But, you know, as we kind of, you know, tie a ribbon around this topic, and I chose that word specifically, right? Because I talked about this actually when we talked about Jussie. It's the idea of grace. I think social media, and we're about to go into another topic that kind of spun off from this in the social media realm. I think from my perspective, social media gives us the ability to get our our thoughts, our snarkiness is rewarded.
Our pettiness.
Our pettiness is rewarded. And what we know for sure is that when, from my perspective, when I am looking for someone to agree with me, I'll find them on social media.
Sure.
Absolutely.
And for me, and I talked about this before, like 2019 is also for me about having as much compassion for Black people as I can. And so that is not affirming people's feelings, right? But also recognizing that, you know, I just because I have the thought, sometimes I have to churn it in my spirit and in my soul first before I let it out into the world. But that's my personal take. So interestingly enough, and David, I'm going to look at you as we transition. So a lot of things came out of this topic. So before I go there though, make sure if you haven't done so, hit subscribe. And if you haven't hit the little thumbs up button to like this video, make sure you do that now. And if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat box. So within that 24-hour time span after Nipsey's murder, there was also a really robust conversation about Dr. Sebi and many things. Dr. Sebi, an herbalist who transitioned several years ago, but among the things that Dr. Sebi is known for is a cure. Is one of the things is a cure for HIV.
Right.
Is there a cure for HIV?
I don't think so, and I think the conversation around this and kind of why it spun up, because I started seeing social media, and I remember hearing about Dr. Sebi, years ago. People were talking about him, and he died. He died of pneumonia. How many years ago?
Well, it's not super long ago, but I believe he was like 82 or 83.
Yeah, so he died, and people were talking about how it was a conspiracy in the pharmaceutical companies and the government, and this was a brother he was from Honduras, I believe, correct?
Yes.
And had, you know, some herbalistic remedies to cancer. It wasn't just HIV, it was cancer, HIV, allergies, you name it, herpes, he had the cure for it. And I think what's interesting is I saw this kind of thing evolve on social media where people were just going at it again. And it's very similar, not to bring Jussie back into it, but I'm going to. But it's kind of like people had their beliefs to begin with. So fuck the facts, damn the facts. I just need to figure out what I believe and support it. And we're just going to fight on social media. And I think that's what people were doing. And I think, you know, one of the better articles I read by Kenyon Farrow with thebody.com was talking about this whole conversation about a cure for HIV. And as far as I know, I've been working in the HIV field for 20 some odd years. We don't know about a cure for HIV right now. I can say from my own personal work that I've seen people come into the clinic or come into a hospital at death's door, and we give them some of these antiretroviral medications, and they turn around and within months they're back to their normal selves. That is not a cure, but traditional medicine does help delay the virus from its progression on your immune system. I don't have any facts. I don't know. I just know what I read in the internet where people say there's a cure. I haven't seen studies. I haven't seen cases. I haven't seen testimonies. I haven't seen any of that stuff on the internet, just someone claiming that there's a cure. And so I can't vouch for that, but I'd be interested to hear, because I know there are herbs that work on the immune system, that can work with viruses, that can boost your immune system so that you can naturally take care of viruses and bacteria. So I don't think that's off in some facts, but I'm also a person that believes that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So you can trust traditional medicine, which a lot of traditional medications come from herbs and plants. And you can also believe in a lot of roots, extracts, herbs that can work in conjunction. So I believe they have to work together. The bigger question to me is kind of why we as Black people want to hold on to these things so tightly when we come up with this stuff like there's a conspiracy theory, or the pharmaceutical companies are holding out, they have a cure but they can make more money off of, you know, just keeping people HIV positive and keeping them on meds forever, which when you look at hepatitis C, we have cures for hepatitis C right now. And the pharmaceutical companies are making a lot of money off the cure as well. So it kind of like debunks a little bit of that. But I think the bigger picture is that why there's this dichotomy. Like, some of us just won't believe it at all, and then there's some of us that as soon as that conspiracy theory comes up, or as soon as that, well, he was murdered because this, any other, Lisa Left Eye Lopez was killed because of this, and all this other stuff was happening. We don't know, but why do we cling on it so much, or why do we cling on it so tightly? Is it because of trauma? Is it because we're looking for hope? We're looking for an answer. We've been fucked over so many times by the government, by white supremacy, by the world, that it's easy to believe something as soon as somebody throws that into the mix.
Again, we kind of had that conversation before we started. I was just saying that we have had everything taken from us.
Right.
We don't own anything, so to speak. We're just this consumer base of people who don't have any stake in anything. So it's like when we finally do have something, it appears that someone takes it from us or someone dies. He's an 83-year-old man. 83-year-old people die.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think none of my grandparents lived to be 80.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
Right.
I mean, that's just kind of what happens. You grow old and you pass away.
Right.
So for me to think that this man, his death was some conspiracy, it's crazy to me. However, I think that's what happens is when someone is alleged to have done something as important as cured HIV or cured cancer or something like that. It's a great, monumental, ridiculously large achievement, and it's taken from you. Then yeah, it had to be a conspiracy.
Right.
They don't want a black man to succeed in that way.
Right.
It's that whole Bill Cosby thing. They're just trying to tear a black man down. I don't care if he did rape 50 women.
He was about to buy NBC.
He's about to buy NBC. Yeah, you know what I mean?
But it's rooted. But I think the important part is that it's rooted in fact. Like, if we haven't been. Like, people will always say in medical facilities, and right now the conversations around HIV, like, why can't we get black gay men to take PrEP? Why can't we get black? And they always say it's a mistrust. And I always correct them and say it's not a mistrust, it's a distrust. And a distrust to me is different from a mistrust, because it's not like miscalculating or misappropriating erroneously. We have a justifiable distrust of medical systems, of government, that is there. And so if you just kind of dismiss it, and just say, oh, you're believing this quack and blah, 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 you miss the whole point. Yeah. And it's not about, and I've seen people on social media making fun of people that embrace the theories, and I think that's the wrong approach altogether, is to say, well, where did this come from, or why do you believe in this? And let's talk about it, and let's just see what the pros and cons are, what your point is, and what your perspective is.
Yeah. It's that conversation.
Yeah, so.
Thank y'all so much. I want to bring in a couple of comments. One from Jay. Because of the proof, so this is going back to the why, right? Because of the proof of shady, suspect things happening in the past, so there's room for the possibility of conspiracies. Absolutely. We've addressed that here. Thank you, Jay. And Jair said, I think a lot of the distrust of the medical industry has to do with things like Tuskegee, syphilis study, etc., the mindset of not being able to trust the government and the medical industry. So, and to bring this into, because this is such a segue, right? So we're talking about how music saved our lives, right? And all of these things are tied together, because I think when I saw this conversation turn, right? So when the conversation around homophobia came up, when the conversation around the Dr. Sebi came up, it was like, social media can pull us in so many directions. We talk about this idea of that 24-hour news cycle and how, like, okay, what's the next thing? And just being able to kind of turn, for me, it's being able to stop. Get off the hamster wheel of it. And one of the reasons why we wanted to talk about this today is just kind of, one, to get some facts. So thank you all so much, and just to get some thoughts. And thank you all so much for your comments. I was looking up there. I'm supposed to be looking over there because that's where the camera is. Thank you all so much for your thoughts. So, and thank you so much, Jay Bernard, for saying Jair and Jay are right, all kidding aside. Thank you so much for that. So as we move in, right, so of course, Nipsey Hussle, rapper, as we continue on, something really important happened last week that I had not seen in a really long time. And that was Jay-Z and Beyoncé at the GLAAD Awards. And we're going to play a quick clip of Beyoncé's portion of her acceptance speech, and we'll be right back.
I want to dedicate this award to my Uncle Johnny, the most fabulous gay man I've ever known and I ever knew, who helped raise me and my sister. He lived his truth, and he was brave and unapologetic during a time when this country wasn't as accepting. And witnessing his battle with HIV was one of the most painful experiences I've ever lived. I'm hopeful that his struggle served to open pathways for other young people to live more freely.
Thank you all so much. That was, of course, Beyoncé and Jay-Z at the GLAAD Awards last week. And listen, couple of things. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit like. Watching that for me, I started, my knowledge of HIV came from music. It started for me with music. I'm very clear about that, right? And it has been a long time since I have seen a pop star, not just a pop star, but Beyonce, who is arguably the biggest pop star in the world, be that vulnerable on stage about her black gay uncle Johnny who lived with HIV. Word. Like, Michael, I'm gonna start with you. Like, what is that thoughts?
I just have to say 713 Houston, Texas, represent. Yes, so I think really for me, the funny thing about this is when the email came out with Beyonce and Jay-Z getting the award, there was all this backlash. What has she done for the black gay community? All of these things, different topic. But when she got on there and she did this speech, it was this big F you to everybody because it still was saying that black men have been, black gay men and black gay men that are living with HIV and have lived with HIV have been in the shadows for so long. But for her to actually shine the spotlight on her Uncle Johnny who lived with HIV that, you know, she got emotional, she got teary about, it was still bringing him into the space, calling the ancestors into the room, and still saying that so many black gay men and black gay men living with HIV are behind a lot of these women. The dances, the culture, the hair, the makeup, all of these things.
No, that's not being fictional.
No,
that's like
it's
make them look good.
So for them to be able to still get called in the room, you know, from the biggest pop star that we have right now, black, all of these things of intersectionality, it was just amazing, and I really felt proud to be from Houston, Texas. but it really was like I felt seen. I really felt seen. And it really was the big F you to everybody who was like, well, what have they done? And all of those things. Like, you got to give it to her. She did it.
Yeah, and for her to actually, she mentioned he was the shining example or a great example of living in his own truth. And so you see somebody like Beyonce, who I think how she's developed over time, like I think when we look at other artists, like Mariah Carey's from Long Island, Whitney Houston was from Newark, New Jersey, and they tried to hide that kind of hood part of them down, like, okay, I'm glam in this. Beyonce has always embraced like the glam, and she can be ratchet at the same time, and it's not a contradiction, not to quote Lauryn Hill, but it's not a contradiction to do that. And so for her to say that she got inspiration and someone that helped form how she was going to feel about standing in her own truth and bringing that a black gay ancestor into the space with that was just phenomenal. So I was really happy that she did that.
I think that's another part of an evolution that we get to see. We, you know what I mean? Initially, I don't think we would have ever heard that from the Destiny's Child, Beyonce, even though she was a much younger woman, but they were not anywhere near that conversation. And so for her to own that moment was really pretty special to me. When I saw it, it made you feel something. It really did. I mean, you could tell it was very genuine. It wasn't, you know, contrived at all. And I'm proud of her. I really am. I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of Jay. You know, for Sean to talk about his mother the way he did. I mean, that was incredible. He basically just accepted the award on her behalf. You know, so I mean, that was amazing. So.
Jay Moore said, "Hail the Queen, indeed." And if there are any more comments that folks have, please be sure to put them in the chat box. We came here tonight to have this conversation about music, right? And so I love that we've been, like, that has been a through line, right? Talking about the memory of Nipsey Hussle and the evolution of both Jay-Z and Beyonce and what they're doing for the community and bringing us to this place. Like I said, I can't remember a time. So, okay, story, true story. My favorite song as a kid, my first favorite song, "Bustin' Loose" by Chuck Brown. And
not just to get what you need.
nigga, listen. And that probably says a lot about my personality and how I ended up developing into this person, right? But what I know for sure is at my darkest moments, music has always been there. And so as we transition into this conversation, everybody who's watching, please feel free to comment on how music has saved your life. We really want to hear those stories. And who are some of the artists? What are some of the songs that really get to that place? And Kipper, I'm actually going to start with you. You know, of course, you have a historic, long storied history in the music industry. And
Come on.
and I want to talk about how music shaped, just talk about how music shaped you.
Well, it's interesting. I'm working on a project right now that I don't have to tell you too much about, but it's called Soul in the Sanctuary. And it addresses the dichotomy of R&B soul music and its roots in gospel music and kind of pairs them together in performance. And for me, my earliest memories of music, period, were from the church. And I always figured that I would do this. I've kind of just felt this thing that I would do this, but I didn't feel that I would be doing gospel music, and I never got that. So when I started like doing what we call secular stuff and got my own band and started doing that thing, and then got the thumb put down on me by the church, you know, we don't want these nightclub singers singing in our church, you know, kind of thing. It was
Avery. That's what she was doing.
Well, yeah, I was and I didn't even know it. So,
Daddy, sinners have souls.
Right. So, you know, it was just this battle that I always had to kind of fight, the inner battle that I always kind of had to fight. But I always went, and it's funny, we were talking about the Amazing Grace documentary, which is going to be coming. But I always would go back to that. I would always go back to this gospel thing. Like if somebody died in my life or something, I had a great uncle that passed away, my Uncle Bob, whom I adored. And I just sat in my car and listened to the Winans' Trust in God just over and over and over and over again. Because there is something about the music of the church that is not just powerful, but it is affirming for me. And so it just brings me peace and that kind of thing. But then, you know, on the other side of things, I think that when you can write a song or create music that really speaks to real situations and real life and all that kind of thing, that's just the same ministry as most gospel music is as well. So I don't know if that answers anything that you just asked me, but I'm just trying to really just kind of explain, you know, where I am in that mix, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Where can we find your music?
Where can you find my music? You can find my music at, well, at Spotify, of course. But I'm Uncle Kipper everywhere. Look for me. But I think what is my Spotify playlist called? It's called The Songs of Kipper Jones.
The Songs of Kipper Jones.
Yes. But everywhere. iTunes, Amazon, Google Play, and every other format that is available in the digital atmosphere, because all my stuff is out of print. David, don't do it.
He's being humble because when I was when I was in college in New Jersey, I did a radio show at Princeton. We called it Contemporary Soul. My DJ name was the Candyman.
Really?
Don't just let me be great. Let me be great. And so we did a Quiet Storm show, and there was an album by a group called Tease. That had this song called Remember that used to be like a staple every time we did the Quiet Storm. And when I first met Kipper in Atlanta, he said, you know, everyone told me what a great singer he was and how he's been in the music industry. And I was asking him some questions. He's like, yeah, I was in this group Tease. And I literally almost passed out because I used to listen to that album all the time. So if you're on, the videos are on YouTube.
Come
it's
to
on
the club,
Spotify.
Alvin. No.
But it's called, the album that I used to listen to is called Remember. And it has some of the most brilliant R&B songs you'll ever hear, both fast, mid-paced, and slow jams. And Kipper is singing his ass off. One of the things I'll build on from what you said about church is that I was raised Catholic, so there was nothing but like, there was like some really boring hymns that were going on back in the day. But I remember when I went to my first black gay club was in New York City. It was Trax. And it was on a Tuesday night, and the kids called it welfare night because if you were broke, you could always afford it because they let us all in free. And it was my first time going and seeing a lot of other black gay men in a space. And I remember going on the second floor of the club, and there was a song playing. It was Alicia Myers, I Want to Thank You.
Yes.
And when I tell you it was like church, it was absolutely church. And when I remember looking down at the audience, and everybody was dancing, and there was this one brother that was sitting in the middle, and he had his hands up to the sky, and he was singing. He knew every word. And I had no idea what the song was, but it stuck with me. And since I was a DJ at the time, I had to track it down and find it. But like, it's music like that that you can't forget. And then, you know, when you talk about music saved my life, I'm thinking about like being a young black same gender loving kid and not really seeing too many of us and trying to hide it from my college, you know, colleagues and stuff, and then going to a place that was so affirming and was like church. And that song is like church, and the lyrics are like church, and the message is like church. So things like that, it carries over even today when I listen to, if I'm kind of falling down and I'm trying to get myself back together, the song by B. Slade, who was formerly known as Tone, Make Me Over.
Yes.
When I tell you I can put that on repeat for 3 hours and play that nonstop, I'll cry, I'll sing, I'll act like I have a voice. Or I'll just watch Luther Vandross sing Superstar at Wembley Stadium and listen to him harmonize with the background singers, Lisa Fisher and all the other people that were there. It literally is like church if you let it like kind of flow through you. And it just, you could be in a bad mood and pick that up, or people could be calling you all kinds of N-words and F-words and trying to bring you down, and you listen to that music and it'll just take you through it. It'll carry you through.
For mine, I'm a big fan of the gospel of Mary J. Blige. For me, like, Mary J. Blige for me was a spiritual experience for me, because my music really did save my life. I remember being 14, 15 years old, at this time in Jacksonville, Florida. I had just went through a traumatic experience with a family member, and it was kind of like the light bulb. Like, I was this bright, you know, outgoing person. That event happened in my life, and then it was kind of just like snuffed out. And I was quiet, I was introverted, I went into myself, I wouldn't talk to anybody. I felt like I had nobody that knew me. At the same time, I was coming into realizing that I was attracted to boys at the time. So there were so many things that were going on in my life. And I remember being 15, and I would go into the bathroom because that was the only place that we could shut the door. And have privacy in the house. And it was a really rough night for me. I was now I realize it was depression, but for me, I was thinking of taking my life. I was going, you know, through the motions. I was getting it together of what it was going to be. And I remember at that time, 2001, Mary J. Blige had released No More Drama, and there was this, the No More Drama title track, and there was just something in her voice that, at the end, when she was just saying that we are free and we're going to get through this and no more drama, that I felt that. It was something in my spirit that just said that, you know, there can be that. And the other songs that she put on the album, like Testimony, and I'm in my mind thinking that I'm about to, you know, end it. And how is this woman that went through all of these things, at the end of the album, she's saying that this is her testimony. Like, she's going to be okay, she's going to make it through it. And she was ministering to me, to tie it back to gospel, that I'll be okay, that I will make it, that everything will be okay. And I will say, as a follow-up, music did save my life, but there's a lot of medical professionals in my life as well, therapy and talking to people, so I don't just want to put it all on Mary J. Blige, but I would love to. But even still at that time, I did not take my life. I'm still here, and I'm still in the care of medical professionals. But that was one of the things that I did do afterward, realizing now that it was depression and being treated for it, and I'm still in care for it. But for me, it was a ministering to me. It was something in me that said that there's so much more for you here, that you will live. And you'll do it, and going to see her live, which was a whole different experience. That was my church. And I remember the first time I saw her at the Essence Festival, I was like 18, 19 years old. And my mama was looking at me because I was having a religious experience because all of those things I had went through, everything, listening to her, seeing her hop across that stage and jump, and all of those things. For me, it was a release. It was the transference of that energy of knowing where I came from. And that was my testimony that I might not have been here, you know, that I couldn't. So with, you know, music, it literally did. And in those moments, it's a friend. It gives me a hug. It makes me smile. It makes me dance. It makes me move my body. All of those things. So it has so many like healing properties and all of those things to it. So like music, it really did. It really did help me. So.
Can I just kind
Please.
of piggyback off what you said?
And then I'm going to bring in some comments, please.
Interesting that you said that. I have had the awesome opportunity to write a song for an artist called Brandy.
Never heard of her.
No, it's a Monica. Kind of
Monica may be better.
mediocre talent.
She hasn't really done much.
She's not. Yeah, you might not know her. But no, I just music can also be very cathartic in terms of creating it. And when I wrote that particular song, it was a place for me.
Are you going to say what song it is?
That I just poured out what I was dealing with. But again, I'm writing for, at that time, a 15-year-old girl. So I had to kind of really tailor it to her. But that song was called Broken Hearted. And that piece is, interestingly enough, years later, 20 plus years later, a friend of mine who's a Stanford grad, you know, brilliant guy, he came to me and said, Kipper, I just wanted to tell you that that song saved my life.
Wow.
I was going through the worst relationship I had ever been in my life, and I was done. I could just, you know, I could have ended it, and I listened to that song over and over and over again. Life's not over, I can start again, you know, and I'm telling you, and no one had ever said anything so impactful to me about something that came through me. It's hard to even say that I created it because I kind of operate on the basis that I am a vessel. And so when someone says that to me, I almost didn't know how to respond, but I'm just like, wow. Something that was cathartic for me can not only be cathartic or a release for someone else, but again, saving your life, that's huge. That's a huge, you know, that's that crown. Heavy is the head whom wear the crown. You know, and so that's that.
And it's
thing.
better, and that's better to be than any award, any accolade you can
Oh
get.
my
Somebody
God, yes.
somebody comes and tell you that, like, that speaks to your soul. It's
Oh
just,
man, I mean, I tell you, you couldn't pay me for that.
Right.
I mean, period. Yeah. Absolutely.
Thank y'all so much. I want to bring in some comments. We've actually had a lot of interaction. Thank y'all for being so amazing. So a couple of things. So first and foremost, Bernard mentioned, this goes back to the conversation that we were having with Beyoncé. And it was, how important is it for Black straight power players to validate gay and Black gay lives? Is it that more important for larger society? Do we need it, or both?
both.
No, absolutely.
Yeah,
both.
yeah. I think that's a great question.
The more people we have involved, why not?
Right.
No, thank you so much for that question, Bernard. I agree. And so we have a few comments. So Quentin, hey, Dr. Q.
Hey, Dr. Q.
He said, Johnny knows how I feel about Princess. Sometimes it snows in April.
Oh,
Moves me every time.
Yes. That's a beautiful song.
Oh my gosh. Jair, Bishop Yvette Flunder.
Oh no!
has a fun. No. Jair, you almost passed out. Bishop Yvette Flunder has a funny, interesting quote about gospel music. She said, if there were no same-gender loving people in gospel music, there would be about 3 songs and not good ones.
And she's right.
Tell that she's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bishop Flunder, for that ministry.
Don't do that. Who said that?
Jair said that was a quote.
Jair, be careful. You don't understand. That woman hold a very special place in my heart.
Stephen Hicks, music has been a constant for me. From my parents' divorce to heartbreak to successes to mundane, there's been a soundtrack. I'm grateful for Gil Scott-Heron, Wu-Tang Clan, and so many others.
And that's what Brother Stephen knows music. So,
Yeah.
hey, Stephen.
This is another comment from Bernard. The era is usually as important as the direct impact of music, usually in our more formative years as we come into personhood, which is different than adulthood. I absolutely agree. Like, there are songs that you put on to this day that take you back to a moment in time.
Absolutely.
What are these kids today doing?
I have no idea. That is a whole show.
That's it.
I'm not down to anybody. I just want to know so I can play them.
Right.
Kodak Yellow.
Yes.
There you go.
That's a turn. That's a turn up. Listen. Jay said, "Listen, Make Me Over is it."
Yes.
So ironic. I was listening to that today.
Everything.
Ennis Jackson, gospel music, different songs at different times. As a kid, Tremaine Hawkins, Never Alone. College, Sounds of Blackness, Relief.
Yes. Sounds of
I think The
Blackness.
Pressure as well from that era.
Optimistic.
Yes. Married. Let me see. Married. Is there anything I can make? That's when he blessed me.
Yeah.
Okay. And a couple more comments I want to bring in. For Bernard, also for Black gay men in particular, is it no coincidence? Oh, this is a good question, David. Back to your comment. For Black gay men in particular, is it no coincidence that clubs, especially Gospel House, have been cited as church? I'm going to keep going with this. Clubs, especially in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, were where we could literally congregate and commune, which is why gospel music and soulful house informed the soundtracks of so many Black SGL lives.
Absolutely.
There's a quote from Frankie Knuckles, who referred to the warehouse as church for people who'd fallen from grace.
Absolutely.
That's exactly right. I was going to say, I grew up in a club in Los Angeles called the Catch One.
The Catch, yes!
Jules, Catch One. Come on. Jules' room was my little hideout downstairs where I used to go and sing downstairs because Jules' room was a little bar downstairs. And it was just a little piece of heaven. But Catch One was literally, it was church.
Yeah.
You talked about, Alicia Meyer's record. And that was a prayer.
Oh my God.
And so what that guy was doing was having this transcendental moment and prayer. And I remember when they debuted the Clark Sisters, You Brought the Sunshine.
Come on.
Did it go up?
Catch One, them kids ran through there. Oh my Lord. I mean, it was literally church. That, the Bohannon record, everybody. Get on up and dance. I mean, it was just church, just running.
Alvin got it.
But I mean, really, it was really church, and a lot of the kids, you knew from church would be there, but then a lot of the kids that were just so burnt from church and done with it could go find their religious experience in that space, and it was just an amazing, safe, wonderful, affirming space.
Yeah.
And then, so every time I traveled with the band or wherever, I mean, I was going, if I went to New York, I was looking for tracks. Or I had the awesome opportunity to go to the Paradise Garage before.
Oh my God, yeah, I never got there.
And Shelter and Better Days.
The Shelter, Better Days was great.
And in Philly, I went out, and I mean, you were always looking for that space in whatever city that you went to because it was safe and affirming, and it was church.
Right.
That's where you got your life.
It's interesting. I know we gotta wrap up, but Michael was saying earlier, people think I'm sacrilegious because my favorite Mary J album is What's the 411, and everybody literally just wants to kill me because
the Old Testament.
Because it's my life. And my life is the New Testament.
Right.
But I remember because Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis produced a lot of the tracks in No More Drama, including the title track, and I'm just a huge Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis fan. And I remember watching the video. And there's the moment in the video, and I will actually, when you mentioned that song, it made so much sense to me because I actually cry when I watch that because there's a moment where she faces it's a electronics store and there's all these TVs.
Yeah.
And around the time Mariah was going through her breakdown, Puffy was going through some stuff, and they had them on the screens, and she's screaming at the TV about no more drama, no more this, and it's so powerful. Like you'd have to not have a soul to watch that video and not be touched by it. But it's such an amazing song, so to hear, it doesn't surprise me when you tell me that song resonated so much and kind of lifted you out of a dark place because, man, that song was just powerful as hell, powerful as hell.
Yeah. I'm going to get y'all to think. I'm going to bring a couple of more comments in because we're going to wrap. So this is going to be hard, but I'm going to ask it. I know I was going to ask it. I know. If I'm going to ask it this way, though. If you could pick, think about this. If you could pick one song that fills you up and will touch other people, what is that song? So hold that for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to come back. That's why I'm going to give y'all time. And I want to talk about a couple of these comments. So Jay, thank you so much. Yes, Lord, music is life. Marvell, thank you so much for joining us, Marvell. Marvell mentioned, I'm so enjoying this conversation. Brandy is my favorite. Mary J. Blige, no one else is his join. And just wanted to look at.
Go ahead. Call me.
And Love Tonight and yes, Scruff Face. I think that's related to.
I'm the only new one with Scruff Face.
Oh wow! Yeah, I think that's for you, David. And Enos, I am sorry I mispronounced your name earlier, so it's Enos. Thank you so much. And Enos also mentions that Fall Down had that effect for him too. Now that we've done that, Sounds of Blackness Optimistic. Thanks, Jay. Now that we've done that. Yes.
Tremaine Hawkins.
Is that Tremaine Hawkins Fall Down, Enos? Let us know. Okay, so I'm gonna go around. I'll start since we're here. I'm saying I'm gonna start and then I can't think. Then I can't think because there's so many. We're gonna go around for whoever goes first. A song that fills you up and that you can also pass to.
Come on, Kipper.
Someone else.
Well, I mean, there's like one song that I've sung it like several times, but I break down. I can't finish it. And it's a song by James Taylor. Shower the people you love.
Are you serious?
with love.
That's a beautiful song.
Show them the way you feel.
Come on.
Because things are gonna be much better if you only will. Yeah, it's just the most beautiful piece. I mean, it is. It's just a beautiful song. It's full of all the things that music does. So
It is a beautiful song.
So, Michael.
So I had one, but then my spirit led me to Whitney Houston, You Were Loved, from the Bodyguard the Preacher's Wife soundtrack, with her. And I can't sing, but some of the lyrics are, we are all looking for a place in this world. We all want our voices to be heard. Everybody wants to, be loved by somebody. And of course, like you were loved, you were touched, all of those things. So for me, it's one of those things that is kind of like a love song, but it's a hidden message in it. And I love those. I love double entendres. But it's just still sometimes, and I'm working on this as well, and it's one of my places in therapy is focusing on what you have in your life instead of the lack of. So it's one of those songs that I want to give to you all that are out there because it will fill you up and you will realize that you were loved. You touched somebody by being here on this earth and doing all of those things. So my spirit led that to me, so I want to share that.
All right.
For some reason, the one gospel album that I played to death, and this was back in the day when you had cars with the 6 CD changers in the trunk. And you had to put, if you were traveling somewhere, you had to like plan your music ahead of time. Like, you don't understand the struggles. Right, he just doesn't know what's going on.
Wow.
So it was Donald Lawrence and the Tri-City Singers, Go Get Your Life, I believe it is. And there's a song called I Try, and I don't know the name of the woman who sings it, but when I tell you, just like, it lifts me every time, because her voice, there's not a crack, there's not a break in it, nothing. She's pitch perfect, and it's, I just remember that song. Make Me Over, obviously, if I were to get into
One
R&B.
song.
Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say If You Were Here Tonight by Alexander O'Neal? Does that count? That's not spiritual. Of course I can.
Create the playlist.
Okay, right. He's like, one song, not a playlist.
I'm feeling like this is a playlist though. So one of the things that I will do this from my J Raise the Name Spotify.
Okay.
Is I'll put in here. So I'll come back and somewhere I'll find a way to do this and put the songs that people have mentioned into a playlist. So the song I'm picking, interestingly enough, I didn't think I would pick this song, but It's a fairly newer song, but it's called The City Ain't the Same, and it's by the Foreign Exchange. Yazara actually sings lead on that song. And it's such a beautiful song. It was cold outside, so I thought I'd get away to the one place where I feel warm. And it's this beautiful song about going to this person and then getting there, and that person is already with someone else. And it's singing about this place, you left me here, and this place is not the same without you. It's just beautiful. So we are wrapping up. Everybody, thank you. So that was, oh my God.
Thank y'all for staying
Thank y'all for hanging out. Y'all are amazing. There are so many comments and so many songs.
This was church today.
Yes.
Come on, somebody.
I'm grateful. So here are all the things that you need to know. So follow us on social media. We are at Facebook at The Counter Narrative Project, on Instagram at The Counter Narrative, and at Twitter at Building Desire. If you visit us online at thecounternarrativeproject.org, you can go ahead and join our mailing list. If you haven't done so and you are here and you haven't hit subscribe, hit subscribe. If you haven't hit the thumbs up button to like this video, make sure you do that. And also make sure you share this video. Share it on your social media, let people know, and also share with your folks your favorite songs as well, because there are still songs coming in, and we're just so grateful for y'all. So one thing you need to know. So tomorrow, Counter Narrative Project, if you go to our Facebook page, you'll see this. We're having a conversation about what is our conversation tomorrow? It's our Black Gay Vote conversation, where we're talking about engaging boards of elections in your local area. So this is not specific to any particular area. We're going to be doing a presentation online that all of you can join in on. So if you go to our Facebook page and click on events, you can RSVP to come to that tomorrow. We will be back here next week. We are looking forward to being with all of you again, so make sure you come back next week. And quick final thoughts. Anybody want to share anything? Where can you find you online, etc.? So we can go do a quick round.
Hey, I'm Kipper Jones. You can find me on social media at Uncle Kipper everywhere. I'm Uncle Kipper at Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff. Also, add yourself to the Lyricdom Facebook group, where we talk about great songs, great lyricists, give songwriter tips, all that kind of stuff. And it's an awesome, awesome place to be. I just am so honored to be asked to do this. So thank you. I'm sitting here with you and Michael and the good doctor.
Thank you.
So it's awesome, and thank you. And thank you, Alvin, over there.
Really quick.
He's like, keep it moving, keep it moving.
So you can find me on Facebook, Michael Ward. Look for the smiling black guy. Twitter, Instagram, I'm at Michael, MICHAELX, letter X, WARD. So you can find me on there.
I'm on Twitter. You can find me in the A. And Travante.
Thank you all so much for joining us this evening. We love you like cook food. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all. It won't be a joke if he's watching.
People gonna. That's what happens.
You know, he got that on.